it sounds simple and it sounds terrible at the same time, but it took me 10 years hunting feral hogs at feeders to start isolating giant boars and get them in front of me. Mm-hmm. For instance, in the summertime, those stupid things lay by the feeders like 2 hours before the feeder goes off. What else do they have to do? They're literally unsupervised.
Yeah.
It took me like 3 years or 4 years to figure out the stupid things were there. That's why I wasn't seeing them. Like the camera shows them over and over, and I would go moseying in there, gonna really whack him. Here, I'm after him. He was 30 yards behind my stand, got in the stand, and he never made a sound, didn't grunt. Never knew he was there.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Aptitude Outdoors podcast, where we interview conservationists, hunters, anglers, and outdoorsmen and women to bring you the greatest stories, information, and advice from the best in the world. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Aptitude Outdoors podcast. Thanks for tuning back in. Today, we have another roundtable discussion from the Hunt Fish Podcast Summit, where we talk about hunting. There's a mix of new hunters, very experienced hunters, and we talk about the issues that we're all facing, all the way from we have no idea what we're doing to some of the politics going on in hunting, all that crazy stuff. We are joined on this episode by Troy Fowler, aka the Ranch Fairy, Sam Cunningham, who is of the Texas Bighorn Society, cat hunter of Women Hunt, Austin Monchilov of Hero Hunt, Derek York of Impact Outdoors, and my good friend and wildlife photographer, filmmaker, Seth Geib. So let's get right into this episode, but first a quick word from our sponsors. This episode was recorded live at the 2023 Hunt Fish Podcast Summit, where podcasters and guests from across the country come together to talk about their passions for hunting, fishing, and conservation. This year's summit is brought to you by Waypoint TV, Ron Hoover Marine of Galveston, Spot Stalker Guide Service, the Wild Sheep Foundation, Galveston Fishing Company, Captain Experiences, and Badger Claw Outfitters. All right, today we are having our second panel discussion, and we are focusing on new hunters. We got 3 new hunters here, including myself, and we got some very seasoned hunters in the group, so this ought to be an interesting chat. But before we get into that, we're going to go around and introduce ourselves so we know who's listening. Start with you, sir.
Yeah, my name's Austin Monchilov, originally from Michigan. I live in Middle Tennessee now.
My name is Paul Fiesinski of Aptitude Outdoors.
I'm Troy Fowler, and I'm the Ranch Fairy.
My name is Kat Hunter from Houston, Texas, and I am a graduate class of 22 Women Hunt program through the Wild Sheep Foundation.
I'm Seth Geib. I'm a videographer and photographer, and soon-to-be hunter.
Sam Cunningham, and I'm the president of Texas Bighorn Society.
Derek York, and I'm sitting next to Sam. Also with Impact Outdoors podcast. Thank you.
So the reason we wanted to do this discussion is there's pretty much an even split here between new hunters, seasoned hunters, varying degrees. And for me, hunting has just been a huge part of my life for the last 6 years. Kind of fell into it. You know, I did some hiking, I did some backpacking, kind of the whole hippie college kid soul searching thing people talk about. And I just found that like hiking around and kayaking and doing all this recreational stuff just wasn't cutting it for me. I just kind of like felt like I was just walking around aimlessly, and I started learning about wildlife. And I meet this guy, Derek York, after I did my first deer hunt. And he kind of just plugged me into this pipeline of hunters. My podcast started as talking about just general outdoors stuff, and now it's pretty much all hunting and fishing and conservation. And I don't know. I don't know what it is about hunting. It just is it just sucks you in, hunting and fishing, and it's just really beneficial to me as a person. It's like melts away all the crap that doesn't matter. Amen. The anxiety you get at work and all that stuff. You go and sit in the blind, or you go sit out here and fish like we just did for 3 hours. It's all I could think about. I'm not very quiet very often. I didn't say more than 5 words out there. So, you know, that's what it is for me. And Seth, when I met Seth, he's a photographer. We ended up becoming really good friends. He came here last year, the Hunt Fish Podcast Summit, helped me film a documentary, which we're premiering tonight. And he had no interest in hunting, really. He just bought a shotgun 2 weeks ago, and he's all about it. And I think being around good people like all of you here has changed his perspective a lot. So I want to just go around real quick and just get everybody's experience of like why hunting means, what it means to you, why it means to you, and why you're still doing it, whether you're new or old.
Yeah, right on. So, like I said, I grew up in Michigan. My father and mother didn't really hunt. My mom fished a lot, but my grandfather hunted, and he would take me out. My uncle hunted, and he would take me out, but they lived far away. So once I got hooked, my parents would allow me to bow hunt by myself because for some reason climbing a tree with a bow was safer than sitting in the ground with a gun. I don't know. So yeah, exactly. So so I did a lot of bow hunting growing up. We had a cabin on a lake that was in Michigan. Everybody's got a cabin up north, but the worst thing about going to the cabin up north is the 4-hour sitting in traffic there and sitting in the traffic back. My dad wasn't about it. So our cabin was 15 minutes from the house. And so I got to go there every day before school and after school to fish. And when there was state land across the lake, so I got to do a lot of hunting there. And we had some family friends that had hunting land that I was the only one that was allowed to hunt on. And so I spent almost all my time doing that until I got old enough to realize that chasing girls was cool too. So that, took an even split of my time. But yeah, that's kind of my background. I joined the Marine Corps in 2012, got out in 2017, but I did some deer hunting in North Carolina. Those deer are nowhere near the size that the deer are in Michigan. So that got kind of boring because I didn't really want to do all that work for something the size of my German Shepherd. So yeah, I moved to Tennessee when I got out and instantly got hooked up with a group called Hero Hunt Inc. And that's who I'm here with today. And it's a group that takes veterans and first responders hunting and fishing. And it got me in touch with some people that showed me where the public land was and got me back out in the woods. I haven't really got back out on the water. I have a pond in my backyard that I can fish, but that's not the same. But that'll be my next step is getting a boat and actually being able to get back out on the water. So that's a little bit about me.
Oh, it's my turn. I'm sitting next to Kat. I came out of the womb with a fishing rod and a bow and arrow and guns in my hand. That pretty much explains it. And I haven't stopped. But all I can practically say, I have a ton of energy, and I used to see me at 20. And it kept me out of jail. I mean, I can literally tell you that I was going to be doing something, and whether it was productive or not productive, I was the kid that said, that is a terrible idea. We are going to get in trouble. Pull the trigger, dude. Let's do that and see what happens. And the outdoors has kept me out of a ton. I got into plenty of trouble, but it kept me out of big trouble. And I know it did, looking back. And then being able to raise my kids outside, catching crawdads, catching snakes, running around, shooting pigs, doing whatever. I know it shifted their potential opportunities for whatever the hell the world offers you to a little better focus, right? And so I guess I didn't go to jail. So that is awesome. I was arrested once, but it was good. It was fine.
Fine. I did not come out of the womb with any fishing or hunting gear. Did not. I did not even grow up hunting. Had a love for the outdoors all the time. Traveled with my grandparents. In my late 30s, 2019, I found myself with the opportunity to work for an outfitter. Learned so much in 2 years, and when that was over, I had to find my own avenue. So I joined joint membership in Wild Sheep Foundation, Texas Bighorn Society as a member on my own. And they had a program for new women hunters. I applied, was selected, graduated in October, and went on my first whitetail hunt in December. One shot was all it took, and I can now call myself a hunter. I find now that being around people like all of you here at the summit and hooking up with Chester Moore from Higher Calling Wildlife, that conservation is high on my to-do list. Nice. And passing it on. So as a single mom to a 12-year-old who is very interested in the outdoors and hunting, I want to be able to pass that skill set onto her. So it's kind of short version of it.
So I grew up, my dad took us fishing and stuff when I was little. And then during high school, we fished, with my high school buddies, and just kind of way to kill time when you're living in the country in Ohio. But yeah, I mean, I really kind of fell off of it after that. I've always been interested in the outdoors. I love camping. And And my dad was he's still alive, but he was a photojournalism major in college. And he never really got to live that dream. He went to college, got his photojournalism major, and ended up working at Whirlpool for his whole life, making washing machines.
Because he had you.
Exactly.
Just say it. It's your fault.
Oh, trust me,
Not his fault.
Trust me, I dwell on that.
I don't care
more
what
than I
he
probably
did.
should.
It's your problem. Live with that.
Yeah, but no, I mean, like, so that's always kind of been with me though. So like my brother and I have always had an interest in photography, so that was my outlet into the outdoors.
Nice.
And so, documenting all of that, I started to learn about wildlife and about ecology and conservation. And obviously, if you're going and learning about those kinds of things, you're going to run into hunters. So Paul reached out to me, had me on his podcast, and it's pretty much just been a spiral since then into this world.
Absolutely.
But it's great. Like I've really been enjoying it. And for me, one of the reasons that I'm interested in hunting is just to get to meet people like you, to get different perspectives on my life, and learn about, what keeps other people engaged and living on this planet. So,
Nice.
Who's next?
I almost started out with, I grew up in a small town in the Texas Panhandle, but my wife would take exception to the grown-up part. So I'm from a small town in the Texas Panhandle. Always been in the outdoors. Whole family was. Probably my biggest influence was my grandfather would take me out hunting and fishing, and I would see he would do different things. And one time I asked him, so why are you doing this or that? He said, well, it's to take care of the animals. So why are you doing that? He said, well, if we don't take care of them, nobody will.
Right.
So that's kind of where the conservation part got set at an early age. And like probably a lot of the people sitting around this room started out reading Jack O'Connor and all of the Field and Stream, and just couldn't get enough of that. Mm-hmm. And then I'll really date myself here, watching every week Mutual Omaha's Wild Kingdom. So, that was like the highlight of the week. And I remember as a small kid seeing that, thinking, wow, that'd be so cool to see that. And then as an adult, I've been very fortunate to be able to hunt a lot of places and see a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
You save the best for last or what?
Yes, sir.
The man.
So I never hunted. I never had anybody that showed me how to hunt. In that field, I've kind of lacked a mentor for a lot of my life. And I didn't start hunting until I moved to Texas, really, which was, I was like 23, I think. Fished all that before. My grandmother was, a big influence in that and provided me opportunities and stuff. And I'd go with my dad a lot too. And but moving to Texas just has this aura of Texas. Like,
Yeah.
we do all things bigger and better and badder than everybody else. And everybody down here hunts. And so obviously I got the opportunity, and that passion just ignited a huge flame, specifically about turkeys. I love chasing turkeys, and those that know me know that we do a lot of outreach with kids and stuff. And so we've really, my wife and I really pride ourselves in trying to provide opportunities for kids for a lot of different things. And that's kind of been our biggest avenue to give back and try to take what we've learned and pass that on. And it's been a lot of fun, and hunting has opened up my eyes to a whole new industry and group of people. And, probably wouldn't be here today without being out in the woods and doing all this stuff. So,
Yeah, and I think the problem with a lot of the way hunting is viewed from the outside as someone who hadn't hunted ever is it's just like, if you're not hunting, if you don't know hunters, it's just kind of this like thing people don't talk about. And it's kind of this like that has red tooth and claw, kind of rednecks drinking beer, shooting shit, which, is a segment of the population for sure. I haven't really run into them. I know a few. We all do. But the perspective coming in was so much different. I'm like Seth. I came from a photography background. So, hunting and wildlife really go together hand in hand. So you're like, for me, I learned the animals. Like if I want to shoot a certain bird, I got to know how it does this or that. No different with deer. So I came into it with a way different perspective than somebody who's never even been outside or something. So I feel like I already had a leg up because I've been outside a lot. And one of the hardest things I had a time figuring out was how do I do the technical part of hunting? The technical stuff that nobody teaches you. I didn't have a mentor either. Anybody I ever hunted with was just a dude I knew who also didn't know what they were doing. So like my first deer was just a solo endeavor, basically. I had a buddy there, but he'd never killed a deer either. So I killed this thing and I'm like,
Now what?
what do I do? I'm sitting there looking at it. I'm like,
Dang it, I shot one.
he was like, well, back in college, we did some stuff with deer, and I kind of remember how to gut them, and we're just covered in blood from head to toe, and I had no concept of what I'm doing, dragging it through the mud.
Out in the field looking up YouTube.
Yeah,
Trying to get a signal.
I'm like, I don't know, what do you do? And then we figured it all out, and it was a great experience. And I'm a kind of dive in head first and just figure it out later kind of guy. And you know, I've been so lucky to talk to so many hunting professionals and people that know a hell of a lot more than me. And like, there's so much advice out there. And the thing that I've learned from everybody, I've had hundreds of conversations, and people are just like, you have to just do it. There's no textbook. There's no secret guide. There's no nothing. You go out there, you sit, you hunt. And that's the information I'm trying to get out to people, because there's so much snake oil out there, and there's so many simple solutions that people try and sell, when it's just, for me, the solution is hard work. I mean, I spent 60 hours hunting deer this year, and I didn't get anything, you know? So I don't know. I guess everybody has their differing levels. I mean, you two are probably the most experienced hunters here. Seth's never hunted before. I've hunted a few times. You've hunted once or twice. You know, you've had experience. So like, where does a new hunter, where's the best places to learn? Like, where's the best things to focus on to improve? Like, I understand a little bit of deer ecology and how they live and what they do and how to avoid a deer, but like, what are the key points? You have a lot of technical ability, you know? So like, I guess we'll start with you. Where do I start? How do I improve on a year-to-year basis? What should I be focusing on? You know, because I'm trying to show him the right way to do it and not screw his life up and teach him bad stuff. And we all need help, you know what I mean? I'm just an adult flailing around.
Okay, so what do you want to accomplish?
I want to be able to shoot a deer every year. That's it.
Okay, this is a terrible answer.
Yeah.
Grind.
That's it.
Go screw up. And every time you screw up, you write that down and say, okay, don't do that again.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds simple and it sounds terrible at the same time, but it took me 10 years hunting feral hogs at feeders to start isolating giant boars and get them in front of me. For instance, in the summertime, those stupid things lay by the feeders like 2 hours before the feeder goes off. What else do they have to do? They're literally unsupervised.
Yeah.
It took me like 3 years or 4 years to figure out the stupid things were there. That's why I wasn't seeing them. Like the camera shows them over and over, and I would go moseying in there, gonna really whack him. Here, I'm after him. He was 30 yards behind my stand, got in the stand, and he never made a sound, didn't grunt. Never knew he was there. And I learned that by sitting on a group of pigs, and I stopped shooting them, just shooting them whenever they came in. 25 minutes passed, and a big boar came out and walked out amongst the other ones. And I said, I'm not shooting that guy because I want to know where he was. They all walked off. I walked back in the bushes, and 10 yards in the bushes, there's a bed with no leaves in it. That bastard, he's a bastard. I didn't kill him. Was laying there the whole time, watching them in the bushes, waiting for somebody to shoot one of those pigs and go, oh, I'm good. So moral of the story is you kind of got to mistake your way into it. And that's...
Well, I noticed
I've failed a whole lot more than I've succeeded.
Well, yeah, well, I noticed the biggest thing I noticed even today, because I'm just watching what you guys do when you're fishing. You're all the professionals. You literally fish for a living most of the time. And the thing you guys have that I don't have yet is the patience to just sit there and know
grind.
and sit there with the bait that you know only a big bass will catch and cast it 300 times.
Yep.
Where I'm like, I know a bass of any size will bite this thing I'm using. I'm guaranteeing it. But I don't have the patience yet to just sit there and wait
grind,
for that
yeah.
big bastard
Yeah.
that's gonna roll up. Yeah.
I don't have the global stuff.
So I think grinding is correct because I've seen what that will do. But I think even before that, and I may be unique here because I was a late onset hunter, I'm also a woman. So I think intimidation is a big factor of holding women back. So I think even before you go out and grind, you have to find someone that's willing to help you figure out how to grind. Because if you don't know what to do, you don't know what to do, right? So I think that's a really big, important.
You put on the wacky worm.
I put on the wacky worm and I grind.
I think you won.
Maybe we'll take a recount.
I love how you look directly at me and said that.
And also the power of social media. There's so much information that's out there and available, which is really great. But you're not going to learn by just watching these social media pages. I can go find several women hunters who are decked out in the latest gear, have the greatest guns, travel all over. That's not a level I will ever reach. So I think for someone like me, I'm like, I need all this. I have to do it like this.
You know what my grandpa killed most of his deer in? Blue jeans. Sitting on a stool, smoking a cigarette.
And a lot of it was in
He'd go
blue
put a
jeans
stool up
and a
against a
flannel
chair and
t-shirt, right?
Shoot that deer. I mean, he just knew if the wind was blowing the right way when he opened his window in the morning, okay, the deer are going to be there. If the wind wasn't blowing that way, he just was going to stay in bed.
Right. And there's great gear, and great
Yeah,
gear is really
but
important, and we've come a long way, but I think that is an intimidating factor for a lot of new hunters.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I wouldn't go spend a bunch of money.
Right.
I mean, spend money on the important stuff.
Right. You can have a $4,000 rifle and not know how
If
to
you don't-
shoot it, and you have a
exactly.
$40 one, and
Exactly. I just bought a nice
lethal.
rifle this year. Before that, I've been killing deer with a $300 Savage from Walmart. I mean,
Because it still kills them.
yeah,
It does.
absolutely. It kills them
Right.
the same way. I bought a nicer rifle because I'm going to Idaho to try to kill an elk, and
Yeah.
I'd like to be able to, shoot a little bit farther and know that I'm going to have the same impact. And
but having a good mentor like your grandfather is
Yeah.
a perfect starting point.
well, I don't smoke cigarettes and blue jeans on the side of a hill.
I mean, you
but-
don't have to do it that way, but
But yeah, but another thing that you need to know what you're doing is if you're sitting in public land or private land. I mean,
Yeah.
that makes a big difference.
Oh, a
If you have
huge
access to that changes your strategy completely. So
Yeah, I think kind of where you've all started is a pretty good jumping off spot. If you're hunting public or private land, if it's public land and it's just you two, okay, grind and do your thing. Public or private land, talk to the landowners. And most of those guys, if they're going to let you hunt, they're going to help you. They don't want you to come out there and be miserable. And so anytime you hunt with someone, there's always something to learn. And I've hunted with a lot of PHs and guides and outfitters, and I've always learned something from each and every one of them. They'll look at you and kind of roll their eyes like, what are you doing? And then they'll correct you. And then, like you said, make a mental note, hey, I'm not doing that again. Like you're talking about with the pigs.
When I fish with guides wade fishing down the coast, they say things that are huge, and they just say them. We were talking about this yesterday.
Right.
Well, yeah, every spring the bait, all the bait's offshore, and then water hits about 65, and they come in, they get on the King Ranch shoreline, and they go all the way south to Baffin. There's no reason to really go to Baffin right now because they're all right here. They say that, and you don't hear it.
Right.
You hear them just talking, and you don't go, ding. I actually have a boat that'll get to the King Ranch shoreline, but it won't get to Baffin. Well, I know in March now, hey, that guy said go to the King Ranch shoreline in March. And it happens every year, right?
Yeah.
And if I was going to start somewhere deer hunting, you need to watch your wind approach. I don't think enough people realize, they can go hunting Saturday. And if the wind's backwards, they say, to hell with it, I'm going in there anyway. And you just blew them out.
Yeah.
I learned that on the pigs.
Well, yeah, and that's stuff that without someone that already knows that, it's really difficult because
You just kind of bumble in there. and go
yeah,
hunting.
exactly. And I'm starting to understand more of the wind stuff. And then, because where I live, it's just a big, flat, open plain. There's nothing going on. The wind is going to blow. And I'm hunting a square wood lot in the middle of a cornfields on all sides. There's days where I'm like, well, the deer aren't going to come from this way, so it's blowing and not in my favor. There's no use going out there. I understand that at this point.
Now you understand that.
But then I've been out there on days where I've sat and it's all the wind's bad. I didn't know what I'm doing sitting out there and I didn't see anything. Just over time, I've learned stuff like that. 6 years of sitting in the same exact spot.
Right. Grinding.
Doing it. And I'm starting to understand that methodology, but then you go somewhere, Southern Ohio is hilly, and then the guy, I'm sitting in a tree stand, he's like, thermals, and this thermal, and the wind changes in the thermal, and I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever you just said. And it's just, well, I understand that I need to do the work and put in the work, and I have been. Just saying, for people, I remember my first time as just intimidating as shit and just like rough, It's just like, I spent 6 years screwing up and branched out into a lot of different things, and that's maybe not the best advice, but is it worthwhile to try a bunch of different hunting styles? Because deer hunting is deer hunting, it's pretty standard. Like what you're gonna do for deer is pretty standard across the board.
I think it is. Everybody's wired different. Some people can just sit there like a stump. My buddy Chris Moss can just, 6 hours later, if he's still sitting there, not me, bro.
Never would
And
have thought. Never would have thought.
The hunting
that.
public guys are an interesting crew because Zach can't sit still. So Zach doesn't. Zach just ground pounds all the time. He does very well, and he's always on the ground. He just can't do it. He knows. He almost ground the seats off at the ranch because we were hunting pigs over the deer feeder. So he and I sat in the stands talking like grannies at a girdle sale. But he doesn't sit trees and stuff. He just says, I'm not doing it. I'm a ground guy because I got to move. And I think if you got to find your DNA, so most of the hunting literature, you've done a lot of cool, stuff with walk and stalk and some of the stuff that goes on internationally. But the deer thing is you find a tree, get up in the tree. Well, not necessarily, because Farrenball does really well grinding around in the grass.
You got another right tree. You got to pick the right tree too. If you just go pick any tree because you think your tree stand can go up in it, if there's no deer trails, if there's no deer sign, you're just wasting your time.
If you pick
anyways.
a tree and they go, and the deer keep going 50 yards away, go find out why.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't necessarily move over there, but go look.
Yeah. Yep.
There may be some weird funnel thing that you just happen upon. That's why the saddles are killer.
Yep.
I'm a little different on some of that. I'm more of a ground guy too than a tree. But like, oh, the wind's wrong, whatever. And this is just kind of my motivation for going is there's not a bad day to go hunting. I mean,
Amen.
there was a quote, and I don't even know who said this a while, but the worst day hunting or fishing, however you want to say it, is better than the best day at work or whatever. And so if you think it's a bad day and like, oh, the deer aren't going to be there, then like you said, where are they? You're not going to figure that out from the living room. So, always go out, always learning.
Yeah.
And
Well,
you guys that started with the photography background, I mean, it may not feel like it, but you're so far ahead of most people just from having been out there and seen animals, and you already know how to stalk. Whether you believe it or not, if you're taking pictures of an animal, you know how to stalk unless you've got one of those great big Hubble telescope looking things.
Well, I mean, like shooting with a telephoto lens, a 600-meter telephoto lens is no different than taking a 100-yard shot. You're still in that same distance. Yeah. A deer's still going to run away if it sees you within that distance.
So you guys are a lot further along than I think than you give yourselves credit for, especially from that stalking aspect of it and getting in close to animals and being able to view them and see what they look like. And,
The point Kat brought up about the gear stuff being intimidating, I hear that a ton from people because they think you need a $500 Sitka coat to go hunting. Which, I mean, if this is your main thing that you do and it's what you love and you're going to hunt and you're doing crazy Western hunts, and go for it. But for a newer hunter, it's like they're like, I don't have 10 grand to drop. They just don't. It scares the shit out of them.
I think going back to what Austin said too is like, if you start with the $300 gun, right? Start with that, and don't buy a more expensive gun until you know what you need. Like, you're not going to know what you need until you get out there and practice, get on the ground and start working. I mean, to your point, it was the same thing with photography for me. It was intimidating to get into it when I first started getting into digital photography because I shot film forever. And I was like, oh, I got to buy this, $3,500, $4,000 camera because that's what all these guys on YouTube are using, right? But you don't. Like, I bought like a used $600 camera. I went out there, figured out what I needed, and I spent the money where I needed it instead of just going out and buying a piece of equipment that I was only going to use 10% of the features on, just because I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
So that'd be my advice to anyone getting into this thinking that it is intimidating or that you need to watch or like buy all this gear. You just, like you said, just go out in your blue jeans or like don't even go out with a gun. Just go out and observe and look at animals and just move around in the wilderness.
I think the best part about, I have a little bit of private land, like 10 acres, but I go out there as much as I can. I put my scent on everything. And I think if you have access to private land, you should, because then when you go out there, they know your scent because you're out there all the time. I almost see more deer when I'm out there fumbling around with a chainsaw because they smell me and they probably know that I have corn with me. So, like I say, it's not baiting, it's befriending because they know me, they know the smell, and they're like, that's the guy that's usually got a feeder somewhere around here. Let's see what he's doing today. So
I just got an image of you running across the field with a chainsaw.
no, I'm not that fast. I'd probably trip and fall.
Sprinkling corn.
You need to get a chain with cups on it and shoot the corn with the chain.
There you go. Yeah. So
He needs to be called he needs a new moniker, the Turkey Fairy. Have you seen his videos?
I've got a bunch of turkey. I'm very fortunate. I have a bunch of hens on my property, and Tom's like to chase hens around this time of year. So
Are you running around throwing corn in these videos? Because I watch that.
no, I just have my hand there.
Okay.
I don't run much anymore. But yeah, that's one of my things. If you have private land, go put your scent out there. I mean, a lot of people are like, they're going to smell you and they're going to bounce. But if they're used to your scent out there, it's a different story. So it's just like if you park you drive your Ranger around your property all the time. The first, couple months, they're going to run every time they hear your Ranger or your side-by-side. But they're going to get used to it. They get used to tractors. I mean, how many farmers run over deer when they're cutting corn because the deer are used to the sound of a tractor?
Wait, do they run over them?
Oh, yeah. They get caught up in combines all the time. So, but if you're a smart hunter, you'll also be in your tree stand when the farmer's cutting the corn down. So,
But you don't have to buy a $500,000 combine to hunt a deer.
right. That's very true.
That's a very good point. There's other ways to do it.
And
that produces nothing but hamburger.
Good thing
when
I
you
saved
do
my
that,
receipt.
so.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. You don't get any steaks when you hit a deer with your combine.
Yeah.
It's all hamburger.
It's all ground.
Yeah.
So piggybacking off of observing, I fortunately had the opportunity, like I said in the beginning, to work for a professional outfitter. And I was along on several, I don't want to say 100, but handfuls of hunts. And I was in the back I was with the camera behind the guys, being quiet, seeing how they did it, watching how they watched the wind, knowing how to move, listening to the animals. I learned cardinal directions out in the field. It was great. So I had that advantage. I had that advantage, and I didn't hunt at all. I watched and I learned and I tried to soak in every bit of information. So again, observing, finding someone that you can go with, mentor, I think all of those, getting out and grinding, knowing what's happening, all big major points.
Hey, what's up everyone? James Appleton here, co-founder of Absolute Aid. Welcome to the Seek to Do More program. This program will help you help yourself by developing the daily habits that will elevate your entire life. Over the next 30 days, you'll complete the doers list every single day. And the doers list includes 1, do something physical. 2, follow and stick to your diet of choice. 3, read a real book. 4, further your education on purpose. 5, dedicate time to your spiritual life. And 6, dedicate time to your hobbies. So if you're ready to take a structured, proven approach to build the daily habits that will allow you to get the most out of yourself, your time, and your life every single day, the Seek to Do More program is your blueprint. So make a choice, commit to yourself, sign up below, and let's get started.
Well, I think one of the things too, like we brought up earlier, you're like the arrow guy. That's your thing. Everybody knows you as the arrow guy. How long did it take you to figure this out? I mean, how many thousands of arrows did you shoot before you were like, This is a good idea.
I've been shooting a bow and arrow since I was 12, so 40 years. And it's been the last 10.
Yeah. So
Because I
30.
just went along with what everybody said, and people would just say sometimes it just doesn't work. And I just went along with it. And I'm smarter than that. And didn't realize that. And it didn't really happen until I started failing shooting the big pigs. When you get half an arrow in them at 17 yards and you recover half of them, I have guns.
Yeah.
You can lead fixes a lot of things. And it was frustrating. I'm not a 50 or 80% guy. I want to know why the other 20% isn't working. And so that was been my evolution in this, was really wanting to be lethal rather than just hunting and having stuff happen and say, well, sometimes it doesn't work out. Like one of my friends I hunt out west with, and I go with him more than I guess I'm dumb and strong, so I haul stuff out of hell canyons, and I think it's fun. So,
That's relatable.
like, elk get big when they die.
Hit the ground.
They're big,
Yeah.
but then you kill one, and you walk up there and go, damn, that thing's big. And we're going that way to get out of the hell canyon. But he told me something. He shoots a 300 Weatherby, and he shoots a moderately hard bullet. We were talking about this last night. He considers it a 300 to 500 yard rifle because out there it's canyon shots and stuff like that. And he shoots a moderately hard soft point because it slows down enough at 300 plus yards, and it's awesome. Blows right through them. But closer, it might disrupt because it's going so fast. It's just weird. And he just said it. I was like, man, I thought you'd be shooting the X-bullet or something. We're blasting elk. Long way out there. He goes, no. They tend not to expand way the hell out there. And it's just, that was failure. Like, it's shooting them, and they run around a lot. And this is a big rifle, right? He's not popping at them with the old 6.5 Magic Creedmoor where you only have to shoot within 6 feet of them and it kills them anyway. But he failed a couple of times, and it was a struggle. And then just research, failure, research. And he's been doing it for 40 years as well.
Well, I think the main point that people can pull out from that is it took you 30 years to become the Ranch Fairy arrow guy. It took 30 years of shooting a bow to get there. And people see these dudes on Instagram, they're 18 just slaying it. I'm like, they probably have been hunting since they were 8. I know this myself because I'm doing it right now. And I know it's not as easy as like, I'm going to go buy a $3,000 bow and just slay them. Like, if you don't know what the animal does, I spend more money reading books and watching YouTube videos than I do on any of my equipment.
Right.
And it's panning out well. It's working. I'm killing stuff. I'm catching bass. Last year, I didn't catch a single bass in that pond. This year, I caught the biggest bass of my life because I've read like 20 books on bass fishing.
Nice.
And I fished my ass off all summer. So that's the main thing that I've learned is you have to put in that time. And I went fishing with Derek. He gave me a bunch of cheat codes.
Yeah, right. Cheat codes for your...
Left, right, up.
But also a good point is going like with a guide. How did you learn how to fish? You've been fishing for a long time. You've caught some trophy fish, but a lot of people I know will not go out with a guide because they think they're like a hard ass.
Bill Dance.
Bill Dance is, when is he coming here? No.
I remember growing up, I spent a lot of time with both my grandmothers, and my uncle would always leave his Bassmaster magazines at my dad's mom, my grandmother York's house. And I remember just even like 6, 7 years old, just looking through those magazines and then getting old enough to read them. And I read every one of them. It didn't give me the experience on the water, but when I got to where I was going out more, I would look to that stuff, and I had some people that would help me, but I really taught a lot of that to myself, kind of like what you're doing, Paul, and just went as hard as I could every day I could, and every job I had from 15 and a half till I moved to Texas, every penny went to fishing. Maybe DirecTV or something like that too, but mostly to fishing. And then when I got to hunting, I kind of got pissed at myself because now I got to spend money on hunting.
Well, I went into
And-
both at the same time, so you can imagine where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Yep. And now I've got 2 kids, and I still like spending money on fishing and hunting stuff, but at least I can deduct it on my taxes for my business.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
And you pass it on to your children.
And that's one thing I am trying to spoil my kids with is the opportunities that I didn't have growing up, giving it to them. And right now it's paying off huge for all 3 of us and my wife, all 4 of us, you know, because they're getting immersed in this industry and field of fishing and hunting and the outdoors and conservation specifically. And I hope that bodes well for them and their futures, and they continue to kind of carry on the legacies we're trying to leave them.
Yeah. Well, it's just, I think a lot of people, they want to get really good really fast, and I just don't think that's realistic.
Not possible.
Like I've done it. I'm living it, and I don't think it's possible. And that's the myth I'm trying to dispel, because I'm not saying there's anything wrong with like what people watch on TV. Those people know what they're doing. They have the TV shows for a reason, but it's like going to a range the first time and expecting to nail stuff at 300 yards and you never shot a gun before, like day one. It's like, you got to put in some time. I mean, you just went through all this. You know, what was that like? Like when you came up through that, you went from zero experience to hunting. You had like a crash course with professionals.
Like
Yeah.
ex.
Yeah. So what was that experience like for you? Because we're literally like everyone sitting here is like never hunted a little, hunted a little bit, and then
more.
it's just like stepping up all the way to you've been hunting probably more than all 4 of us combined in our lifetime, you know? So like, what was it like going from 0 to 100?
Not coming from a family that wasn't around guns, or I was very uncomfortable and intimidated. I remember my palms were sweaty. I didn't know how to hold my rifle, didn't know what to do the first day on the range. And with good, patient instructors, of course, they're ex-military snipers, you know, have taught sniper school for 20 years, and now they're working with 12 new women hunters that know nothing. They were patient, and I just was ready to soak in all the information. The difference in my attitude and confidence on day 1 and day 2 going back to the range is probably one of the greatest feelings that is like now a core memory that I'll always have, because the confidence level was through the roof. Like I knew what to do, I felt good. And Renee said when we were in a Zoom right before we left for the course, she said, by day 2, you'll be shooting out to 350 yards accurately. And I was like, I know that's a really long way, and I don't buy that. She was 100% correct. And we did it. We put about 100 rounds downrange in 2 days. It was a lot, and it was so much fun and empowering and cool and great.
Yeah.
But we put in the work.
Yeah. I mean, I went through that too. Like we grew up shooting 22s and pellet guns and stuff, just plinking stuff. But first time I went out with a shotgun, I was like,
Right.
what do I do? And it's like, you know, it's the wealth of information that you have out there is insane. Like learning, the first time I went bird hunting, they're like, yeah, just go grab some shells. I'm like, there's 2, there's 4, there's 6, there's 8, there's BB, there's double BB, there's triple BB, there's buckshot. I'm like, what do I need? And they're like, okay. And like going through that whole process for me is fun. I love that shit. Like that's what I'm all about, learning about that stuff. Like for someone coming in, they've never been around a gun. That's intimidating. He just got his first shotgun a couple weeks ago. He probably knows more than shotguns about me right now, to be honest, because he's down the rabbit hole.
You went down the rabbit hole?
Oh, yeah.
I told him, I said, you hang around me long enough, I'll ruin your life.
Well, that's the thing is like the first time we went out, because we just went out to shoot trap the other day, a couple weekends ago. And I used to shoot trap at my parents' place a couple times. It's like a handful of times. But I didn't know the gun, you know, like I basically was just handed a gun and said like, pull the trigger, like put the safety off, pull the trigger. So like it was a learning experience for me just to like get around the intimidation of the weapon. But what I did, basically what I did is I went on YouTube, I learned, I asked you some questions, you know, like what you would recommend. But then I took that gun apart probably 20 times, cleaned it, completely stripped it of like all the grease, reeded all the grease, figured out every single component of that, took the trigger group apart. Like I was up in my office just like pulling that gun apart. My wife was sick of it. And then I was just running like, you know, like the fake shells through it, trying to figure out what the action was like, how to load it. Like, so like by the time I got out there to the range, like there was no intimidation left. Like I knew that gun. The only thing that was there was just pulling the trigger.
I literally said, he was like, yeah, the manual says to strip all the stuff out of it when you buy it before you shoot. I said, you will be the only person in the world that's ever done that.
On Earth.
No, he won't.
Okay, 2. There's 2 people that have done this. You and you. I don't know anybody else.
I mean, you guys are starting off perfect. Like, you spent however much money, I don't care if it's $50 or $5,000 on a gun. Yeah. You want to know how it works, what makes it work. And so that's how you do it, is to do those things and go through that stuff. I hate the term off-season. A guy that I really respect in shooting sports, somebody asked him, well, what do you do in the off-season? And he said, there is no off-season. He said, I use that time, what they're calling the off-season, to do like you're talking about, maintenance. If he's going to change his scope, hey, that's the time to do it, because now I've got time to shoot again, and I know exactly what's going on when I do go back into the field. Mm-hmm. And so what you guys are doing is spot on.
Yeah, I'm not so much intimidated by the guns because they're pretty basic machines. I mean, they're not super complicated. The bow is what freaks me out because you bump the sight and it's just like, I'm going to have to spend all day redoing all the pins and all that stuff. That's what freaks me out is like, I probably should change the sight on my bow. I can hit stuff at 40 yards. Am I hitting it? Am I grouping it in the inch? No, but it's in the kill zone. But it's still a lot of practice. I have a target in my yard. I mean, I go out there 3 days a week and just run 10 arrows.
Just kind of to Kat's point, it's all about rounds down range. Mm-hmm. If you expect to take that gun out of a box that you've never looked at from the time you bought it and walk out and be successful in a hunt, I mean, it's not going to happen.
Well, this guy's sending down an arrow rabbit hole.
You have to put in that practice and put in those rounds.
Freaking out.
It's easier to call it.
I don't want to speak on behalf of all you men here, but I think it's very important to check your ego and your machismo and be okay with asking questions or help or looking for answers. Don't act like you know it all.
Yeah, that's when I joined the military, the biggest thing when we have PMIs that teach you how to shoot. And that was my biggest issue was letting go of all my bad habits that I was taught growing up on how to shoot. And when I finally brain dumped all that stuff and took in what the professional that was there to teach me the right way taught me, I mean, we were shooting iron sights out to 500 yards just to qualify, and I could hit a target that was moving. So that, I mean, and before that, I was lucky to hit something at 200. So
right.
And all those instructors that you were talking about, they probably loved it.
Yeah.
When
So
they had 12 women to hunt.
Right, because
I've
they're
helped
used
a lot
to
of people shoot, and men and women and friends of mine, and they're like, oh God, could you just do something with her? I can't, she won't listen to me. And women are much better shots.
Which is
than
exactly
men.
what I was going to say.
100% better.
Well,
I said that at the range
Because
yesterday. My
there's
wife
no
can
ego
outshoot me
involved.
all day,
Guys,
every day.
it's this big, like you said, kind of ego-driven thing.
Right.
Women, like my wife, first time she went out, if she missed, she was like, no big deal.
so
And
while I
she
was
grew
at,
up in a family with 2 sisters. They were never in the outdoors. She had never really held a gun until we got married or were dating and taking her out. And she shot the first group. She shot at 100 yards. I could cover up with a nickel.
nice.
And then I was like, well, okay, let's stretch that out to like 400, and told her, kind of explained it. Cling, cling, cling. She looked at me, and now what? I said, give me my gun back. That's what now.
No more guns for you.
Yeah.
So while we were at the FTW, they still run active special ops through there all the time. They have courses for that and ranges. I think out of their 33 ranges, there's so many set for the military. And I asked Doug, who was instructing me one day, we were done with instruction. I said, you've been teaching sniper school for so long to top-notch individuals, on top of their game. Why in the world would you want to go back down to 12 women that know nothing about nothing? And he said, because I was sick of that type A personality and women listen and they're excellent. And I was like, yeah, okay, I can see that. Cool.
It's true. It's absolutely true. One more thing about the grind that I started, I was fortunate to be taught how to fish in the surf by Captain Billy Sanford. He's gone now, but he was the man. There was nobody else down there. There was no next level guides or anything. It was Cap Billy or nobody. And part of that was because he was stubborn and fished down there, and it was a hellhole and very difficult business to run. But people tried to do it as well, and nobody was Billy. And then he taught me a ton of stuff, but until I went out and did it and I still screwed it up, like when you go with him, he kind of knows where the fish are, why he's putting baits where he's putting them, but he's not with me on the next day. And I've got to choose, based on what he told me, where to put the baits, which means you put the baits out, you get in the kayak, you paddle them out, you drop them. It's a ton of work. And you sit there for 3 hours. Nothing. Billy drives up. How y'all doing? Man caught nothing. Well, we got 4 black tips. Screw you, Fowler. And he would drive off. He's an odd dude, and that's from me. Okay, consider the source when I'm telling you he was an odd guy. So that's the grind thing. Like, you can get the best mentors. They'll get you in the right situations. But to your point with the outfit, with the landowners and stuff like that, you listen. But when you start making your own decisions, you can only get so high up until you got to get out there and run into the walls.
Yeah, I agree.
And you almost have to fail to succeed. You have to. But if your head changes to that, then you realize, oh, it's fine. Like, I'm failing again. Not always expecting success. It's one of the things that's tough about some of the hunting shows and stuff and the fishing shows, especially the fishing guys. You don't realize how long they're out there. Right. They pulled 4, they made a video, and they were out there for 2 days. You know this from running video behind guys and stuff. You're out there forever. And on a couple of the shows I've been on, I feel sorry, after about half a day, I feel sorry for the cameraman.
Yeah.
We chased an L guy around in the Arturia, and I was just like, you sure you want to go do this again? Yeah, I mean, let's go. He was all into it. Nothing was happening. I mean, they were telling the nail guy, we weren't having any action. They were just running from us. If you want to see the ass end of a nail guy for 17 hours, I saw them. It was awesome. Running all over the place, plenty of them. So that was an eye-opening deal, was to go guided with Billy for 3 or 4 times, and then I'm going on my own. And he wouldn't tell me. I'd see him. He'd drive up. What are y'all doing today? We're going shark fishing. Well, good luck. And he wouldn't. I figured he'd say, hey, man, they're in the 40s. Nah. He'd more likely to shoot the finger at you and drive off. If he liked you, he did that. But
that's the best teaching right there.
You got to get out there. You just got to go. Yeah. There's no.
Well, and that's where I was talking about guides earlier. Like, I went with Derek out in the ocean. Does that mean I'm going to be able to go fish the ocean successfully? If I go right now by myself, highly unlikely. But I mean something where, I bought a fly rod. I can go up to a guide in northern Michigan and say, I want to catch smallmouth. Take me around. They'll catch me smallmouth, and it's on me to internalize that and be like, okay, am I going to go out there to the same spot where they put me on smallmouth and catch them again? Probably trophy-sized smallmouth where they took me? Probably not, but at least I'll have an understanding. And it doesn't hurt to go to people with experience, and you're going to have to pay for it. This ain't a charity. People are going to expect their knowledge is what you're paying for, but then it's on me to figure out the rest. We use this fly this day. That stuff changes all the time. What the bass are going to eat changes all the time. We were out there the first day, just throwing regular old worms, Texas rig, catching them left and right. You were out there. Today, throwing a little tiny 3-inch thing because nothing else would bite. I changed lures 5 times, So it's just, but that comes with experience. I know that because I did it all summer, nonstop. 5 days a week in the water in a kayak, throwing baits over and over again. And I think for me, I just feel bad for the new hunters. Like when I started, there was nobody there. It was me and some books nerding out. People have this, they give up is what's happening. I feel like a lot of people, and then you have to have some hardiness to stick around and do this stuff too. But a lot of people give up, and then we're losing people in this conservation world because they're never going to spend any more money because they got frustrated. It's just like breaking that veil of it's not as easy as it looks on TV.
Does anybody know the stats? Are we losing people out of the hunting community, or is it stable, or is it? Because if you try to draw out west, you're screwed.
Well, I mean, I know there was a huge influx during COVID. Like people wanted to go up. I don't know about since then, but I mean, there was a huge influx, huge increase.
Because the Western game has become almost impractical.
Yeah, it's insane.
the draws and all that. You used to, I mean, I've only been doing it for 7 years.
I went last year for the first time. I have a friend that was one of my best friends from Michigan, moved out to Washington State and then to Idaho, and he's been nagging me to come out there. So last year I finally went out there with a mule deer tag. Well, it's a regular deer tag, so I could shoot a whitetail too. And we hunted for like 6 days, and I was over it. I was like, this is dumb. And on the last day, I was ready to shoot this little spike whitetail. And he's like, no, let's go over one more range.
Yeah.
One more mountain range. And I was like, no, I'm shooting this thing as soon as it stands up. I'm going to shoot it. And then I'm going to shoot it again because I'm over this. And he's like, no. Yeah, he's like, no, we're going to go over here. And I was like, okay, let's go. So I did. And I ended up shooting a 9-point whitetail.
Nice.
But this year, after I went out there, I told all the, like, Larry that's here with me and Cody and stuff, and we all sat together because Idaho's still over the counter. Everybody, non-residents log on at, I think it's 10 o'clock in the morning that their tags go live, or 8 o'clock their time. And you can get into their online waiting list or whatever, waiting room at like 30 minutes prior. And then once 8 o'clock hits, you get auto-generated a number in line. Their website crashed.
Yeah.
Like a half hour early.
That's what I'm talking about.
Like 2.5 hours.
I'm not saying
And then
we
I
need to
finally got it
recruit,
to
but-
load, and I had a number, and I was like, somehow like I was like 4,000th in line. I think Larry was 3,000, and one of our other friends was like 2,000. But somebody pulled it up on their laptop like 5 minutes later, and they were like 44,000th in line. Wow. And then you just sit there, and then the website crashed again. And then it was offline for like 4 hours while they tried to fix it. And then, so like, there is a crap ton of people trying to get in out there. And then some of them, don't even show up. So I don't know. That's up to them. But if I'm going to wait in line that long, I'm going to show up and try to kill something. So this year I'm going for an elk.
Well, it may be regional. We never, ever did not get a blind duck hunting anytime we applied this year. We were able to basically apply between 4 people and get an entire refuge area for one blind for each of us. We just
I'm
walked
talking
around all
about
day.
New Mexico West, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm
It
from the
gets-
Midwest. It's different everywhere.
Yeah.
But I've seen people just get frustrated and give up. And I'm like, well, it is hard. It is a hard thing. This isn't like Call of Duty. This isn't a video game. You don't just jump in and win. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of hard work. So I think naturally people who don't have that gritty sense are going to give up eventually anyway. I'm just saying, like, people that I know that want to get interested, they get overwhelmed by like, well, I went out and hunted one time and I didn't see anything. Like, dude, people go out for years and don't see anything. Yeah. This is not the same. So I don't know.
Still out.
Yeah.
You're still out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm still out there. I'm not going anywhere. You're stuck with me for a while. What did Chester call me? The invasive exotic of the podcaster
exotic,
world.
yeah.
You're stuck with me, guys. Sorry, I ain't going anywhere. I showed up out of nowhere. I'm just knocking down doors.
Stalking people on Instagram.
Well, that was you stalking people on Instagram.
I think one of the things that I've learned over time, and I know Troy could probably attest to this too, fishing with a lot of guides, there's good ones and there's bad ones. Mm-hmm. Probably my first 5 or 6 experiences with guides were all bad ones. And really put a sour taste in my mouth. And I was like, never really ever thought about being a guide, and it was just more like they didn't really care if they were teaching you anything. They were just going to go do what they wanted to go do, and that was that. And it was just kind of a waste of time and money from my vantage point. First one I ever went on was on Lake Fork with a buddy who got that trip from his mom for his birthday, invited me to go. This is just an example. I mean, the guy wanted to fish bedding fish because it's exciting. You can see the fish, and that's all we did for 6 hours. And I'm sitting there in the back of the boat and, see all these fish on the graph. We're going over in like 10 to 12 feet of water. And I'm like, look at all this bait and stuff. And I tie on a Carolina rig, throw out while we're trolling motoring down the shoreline. I catch like a 6.5 pounder. Never even slowed the boat down. Never stopped. Never helped. And that just pissed me off so bad. I couldn't believe it. And Robert was like, I'm ready to go home after that. Because, it was, why were we out there? Mm-hmm. But I think, finding good guides, good outfitters, which I know you can attest to that too, is really important because there are some really good people like Billy and stuff out there they may be grumpy older guys and stuff, come across that way, but they really want to teach you what they know in their way. And it's really important to find those people.
Yeah.
So don't get discouraged if you go and have a bad time. Find guys that you like and are compatible with and stick with them, because you'll just continue to learn from them every time you go out with them.
Yeah.
And then you'll hook up with those people and you'll be talking, and next time you're going to do something else, well, hey, I know a guy.
Yep.
I've got a guy. And so if you think, well, I've had good luck with him and he's recommending this guy, and then you kind of get into that whole network of good guides. And I mean, we've all been with bad, and that's kind of, follow that chain.
And one thing I've done, I've actually kept the amount of money I've spent guided speckled trout fishing.
Mm-hmm.
I still haven't made if I owned a boat, I still haven't made in a year the amount of money in boat payments. I've not paid out enough to justify a boat payment because of my schedule. So you may go and it's $700 a day and a room cost, so it's a $3,000 or $4,000 4-day deal. I've still not paid for my boat that I have to, and I'm not dragging it to the coast yet. Just owning the boat. So from a financial perspective, when you find the good guys, it seems like a lot of money when you chunk it off, but God, it's money well spent when you find the right people.
Well,
It's a good perspective.
And I generally, unless we just, like the last time I went, we had 35-mile-an-hour winds, and I took a wave over the back of my waders, and that the boat wouldn't hold, the anchor wouldn't hold in 4 feet of water. That's how windy it was. We decided to go in when that happened. I'm kind of a grinder. But we always catch them. And I've got a buddy who's got a boat down there, and we kind of screw around and fish around and don't know where they are. And so on the flip side of the guys, when you find the right ones, it's really efficient money, although it seems like a lot at the time.
well, I've had 2 trips booked in northern Michigan on Grand Traverse Bay to catch salmon. Both times, we didn't catch a damn thing. We got like a pity trout that they caught us at the end of the day. That was my experience with guiding. 2 separate guides. We went up there, spent the $800 or whatever it is for a day trip, split it between 3 dudes. Derek's the only guide that I've had to date where he's like, we're gonna go catch fish, and I'm like, okay, well, cool. And we went out and we caught fish. Maybe that for the end of it. For a newer person,
Maybe Derek knows what the dumb ones are.
Yeah,
The very dumb
That's
ones.
good. That's a good guy.
and he
that knows
gets
what
dumb
the dumb ones
clients
are.
too, like me. But no, I'm just like, I can attest to what you're saying. There's a lot of the guides that we had didn't help. They didn't explain anything. I'm like, why are these rods have these big giant, look like they're bowling balls on them? Like, oh, they just go down. I'm like, well, I figured that much out, dude. I understood that concept, but
Newtonian gravity.
Yeah. How does it work? Like, what is the point of all this? So I don't know. It's just, it gives you confidence if you're going with somebody who gives a shit. That
You just have to weed through them.
yeah, I know.
Like they said, you just have to weed through them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Yeah, and I have a lot of times where, and some of the guides don't know why I do it or some of these other guys do it, but if somebody calls me, I will ask them, what is your goal for your trip? And they may not have a goal. They just want to go take their family fishing, and that's fine. Those are usually the best trips. No expectations. But if there's something specific they want to do, and I'm not good at that specific thing, or it's, just something I'm not comfortable with trying to do with them, I will send them to somebody else that I know they'll be happy with. And I've had people do that and take trips with other people, and they'll eventually call me back and say, hey,
right,
we want to book a trip with you, and so it all comes back to you in the end. Treating people fairly and honestly has paid off dividends in my short career of guiding for 8 years. And
Short 8 years of guiding.
well, a lot of the guys down there have been guiding for 30, 40 years. A lot of them. And we got like 400-something guides just on Galveston alone.
some of my best trips have been with the kids, and I just tell the guide, I call them on the phone, hey, I'd like to book a half-day trip with you. I got some kids. They said, what do you want to catch? Make the string stretch. And they're like, no freaking problem. Like they know where a school of bonita are or something. Yeah. The kids don't care.
Yeah.
Sharks, bonita, jacks, they just want the rods to go in the tip to go in the water, and they want to be in pain.
Paul doesn't care either, but he almost went in the water with the string when it stretched. So
Oh.
I'm seeing a trend.
I just like going in the water. What do you got a problem
And I know
against
we're
that?
talking about fishing now, but fishing is hunting to a huge
Absolutely.
extent, you know, especially in the ocean. In the saltwater environment, it's so much different than fishing in freshwater because it changes minute by minute sometimes. You know, I mean, driving on pins.
Oh, the
I
surf
can't
is
even imagine
the
what
surf is
that's
evolving
like.
in front of you, and if you don't know that, then you're gonna have a rough day. You need to, and you got to see it. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Is there anything that guides hate to be asked? Like, don't ask me this.
Why are the fish not biting?
It's a good one. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't think there's much more to cover here. I mean, I expected these answers out of everyone because like I said, I talked to tons of people about this with my questions, and it's always the same answer. Go hunt. How do you get better at hunting? Go hunt. How do you get better at fishing? Go fishing. Go buy some watermelon or pumpkin green worms and throw them in the water and keep casting in circles until they find fish.
Yep.
That's
Or
it.
the fish get in the mood to eat.
Yeah. You
And
might
that
have to sit
happens.
there for 4 hours.
That happens. All of a sudden, they go off.
If you get mad, go drink a beer, come back and do it all over again the next day. So I really appreciate all you guys' help. I mean, I'm getting to the point where I can't call myself a new hunter anymore, so I got to find a new shtick. I'm doing it for been riding that one for a long
Bad
time.
hunter.
Bad hunter.
Go out west. It's like starting over.
Yeah, out west is a different game, man. That's crazy.
But I went out there once and
Yeah. Well, let me figure out how to kill like a few more animals first, and then we'll talk.
you can kill them out there.
Go hunting.
Yeah, go hunting.
Yeah, that's a good strategy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. Hope, especially Kat and Seth. I hope you learned something. I've been having these guys tell me to go outside for a long time, and it's been working.
This whole weekend has been a learning experience. So.
Fantastic learning
Yeah.
experience. Yeah.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Aptitude Outdoors podcast. If you're getting anything out of this, if you're learning something, if it's helped you in any way, go down in the link below and buy me a coffee. Throw me $1, throw me $2. We greatly appreciate it. Just using it to keep this ship afloat. So thank you very much.